Yo, what's up guys, and welcome to a new video here on Patreon. And today we're gonna be taking this very bad shot and we're gonna make it amazing. So this is from my upcoming short, and it's supposed to be a macro close-up of the Macintosh logo, and I want it to look something like this with a high amount of depth of field, but we're going to make the animation out of just one still image, and I want it to like rack focus, so like this. And you can see it's a pretty simple geometry, and we're going to fake the depth of field so we can get some nice sharp bokeh here, because this just looks like a blurry mess, and that's not very realistic, because we want like sharp round bokeh balls. So yeah, and we want to be able to control the focus racking after the fact. So I've got this shot set up, and yeah, I'm going to disable the depth of field and add it later, and yeah, that's basically this tutorial. So we're doing 50 samples on this, and I've got a simple background here. Nothing crazy really, and yeah, I'm just gonna hit render here, and it should render out pretty quickly. So here we have it, and yeah, because this is very simple geometry, we are going to make the depth map ourselves, but if you're doing very complex geometry, I'd recommend to plug the mist thing into the, into the viewer. If the mist doesn't work, you can try the depth and throw in a normalize thing in between, and there you have a depth map. But I found these to be like pretty hard to work with, but yeah, we're going to make our own depth map. But yeah, that's one thing you could do. Anyways, it also, if you don't see the depth thing, you might have to enable it. Oh, I think it's enabled by default. It's the mist that's not enabled by default. Anyways, image, save as, and I'm going to save this in the stills, and yeah, tutorial. Great. So if we head into After Effects, let's begin. So new comp from footage. And I'm gonna find the image tutorial. There we go. Okay, so first off, I'm gonna make the composition 1280 by 720, so you get these nice bars. And yeah, I'm going to start by adding some nice color correction to this, color grading. And I'm gonna start by adding some lumetri color and tweaking this a little. So it's basically just sliding around these a little until it looks good. So like, I'm focusing on contrast here to sort of bring that up. And yeah, this looks pretty good for the lumetri. And I'm gonna add some faded film. We could crank the sharpening, but it makes it look very unrealistic. So I'm just gonna keep it at 6, I think. And vibrance, gonna bring that up to maybe 20, and add some extra saturation. So I'm gonna add some vignette, and that's pretty much the lumetri color. I'm gonna add some film convert on there to get that nice film look. And I'm thinking this one, but I'm gonna bring down the chroma so it doesn't affect the colors as much. Okay, so that's the basic color grade. You can add some glow if you want. I'm gonna bring up the radius a little and bring down the intensity. Very subtle. And let's also add some chromatic aberration using the VR digital glitch. It's sort of janky, but you can make it work. So I generally like using a 3 or 5 to just get a subtle amount of chromatic aberration in the pixels. Okay, so that's basically our look, I think, and let's get to the real nice part here. So I'm gonna add an adjustment layer. That's not an adjustment layer. There we go. And I'm gonna call this depth of field, DOF. Okay, so After Effects has After Effects has a built-in camera lens blur, but this one is not really good. But it could work for this shot. So just for those who wonder what I use the FL depth of field, which has better controls. And what I like about this one is like you can adjust some settings to make it look like an actual camera lens blur. You can see how you get these nice hard round edges on the bokeh. And we can also tweak the aspect ratio. We can also do that on the default thing. But yeah, you can basically tweak how your iris looks. And that's usually handy. But I'm going to use the default camera lens blur. Not the camera shake deblur. What am I doing? Camera lens blur. Okay, so I'm gonna start by setting this to 25, I think, and I'm going to enable repeat edge pixels. There we go. And if you just crank up the diffraction fringe, you'll get sort of the same effect, like round, nice bokeh with hard edges. So yeah, 500 on that one, and yeah, I'm gonna bring up the roundness a little, like that. Okay, so for the blur map, we're going to make a black and white map that sort of indicates where we want the focus to be. So let's do that. I'm going to add in a solid, and I'm gonna make this completely black, and then I'm gonna add in a white solid, and yeah, so if I just hide these, I'm gonna make a mask around the part that I want to be in focus. Oh, I'm gonna bring this up a little. So I want this part to be in focus, and I'm going to feather it out a lot. So something like this maybe. And we're gonna duplicate it and feather it out even more. Okay, so this is basically our blur map at the moment. So everything that's white will be in focus, and everything that's black will be completely out of focus. So I'm gonna pre-compose this into C depth. I'm gonna just call this that, and yeah. So if I put this at top and just hide it, we should be able to use that as a blur map. So I'm gonna select C depth, and actually we did it the wrong way. It's actually the white parts that are out of focus, but you can easily fix this, I think. Yeah, invert the blur map, and yeah, here we go. We have our blur map, but we have some issues. I don't think this is wide enough. If I'd add a new solid and just make it completely white. Yeah, this is more like gray. So I'm going to just make a nice little mask and feather it. And let's also expand it a little bit so we still get that white part. So something like that. And I'm just gonna put it in the middle. And pre-comp it with the C depth. Okay, so yeah, we'll have to adjust the depth of field again, but yeah. C. Okay, great. We have our blur depth of field, and we do not have to render anything to make a nice focus rack here. Oh, what is going on? It's behaving pretty weird. So it seems like this part is just not getting any attention. And I don't really know if it's because of this camera lens blur or... oh yeah, we can do this. Okay, let's not invert the blur map, and we'll just have this be in focus instead. Okay, yeah, the invert blur map made it a little weird. Okay, so I wanted to focus here, but I wanted to focus on a larger distance. So I'm going to bring down the blur radius to maybe 15. Yeah, and we just have to add a nice little keyframe into the blur distance, and we can make a little animation. So I'm going to drag this maybe there, and then to the classic right there. And yeah, now we have our depth of field inside of After Effects, and we did it ourselves. And we can just do this how many times we want. We can make this like some super cool animation without having to re-render, and we can do a lot of tweaking. And yeah, and we just had to render, like, this took 2 seconds, and we have this whole animation. So this only works on still images, which is a little sad, but if you want to add some motion to this, you can add an adjustment layer, and I'm gonna call this shake. So if we add a transform effect here, we can basically scale around everything else. So I can make this larger, and I can position it around. So if I would make a keyframe on the position here, if you hit Alt and click there, you could do some simple coding. If you just type in wiggle and 1 and 5, I think, you can tweak this around, and you'll get some nice wiggle to your image. Hopefully After Effects doesn't crash. But yeah, here you get some nice wiggle, and you can bring down this to maybe 2 or something. If you want it to be slower, or maybe you want it to be faster, you can put this at 20, and you get a lot of motion. Yeah. So you can just tweak this around. I think 2 and 5 might be good. I don't know. But yeah, you get some nice wiggle, and if you would like to scale this in a little so the edges don't like cut off, you can do that. But yeah, that's how you do depth of field inside a Blender. And if I just hide this under here, we can see a let's see here, before and after, and it's a pretty big difference, and that's how you can save your renders in the post-production. But yeah, have a good one. Bye bye.